Despite Jayden Daniels being the early season favorite, Bo Nix is my NFL Rookie of the Year. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. Make sure to listen to every episode of Locked On NFL on Amazon Music. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Wednesday by the brain, Locked On NFL expert, Luke Braun. On today's episode, we're talking young quarterbacks. Bryce Young, year 3 in Carolina on the way. Also, we'll look at this year's rookie class. Concern for Caleb Williams and Drake Maye. Also, the Rookie of the Year discussion. Bo Nix, my favorite. Luke maybe doesn't necessarily agree. Before we get to that, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the second half of the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Luke, I'm coming out swinging. Bo Nix is my Rookie of the Year right now.
No, it's Jayden Daniels, man. And we're overreacting to a couple of good throws we may have saw on a highlight reel. But here's the thing. I think down to down season, entire body of work for the season, Jayden Daniels has had a couple of games that I think Bo Nix has had about 6 of, where you're just like, whoa, they lost because of him. Like, and the rookie stuff. I mean, Bo Nix has thrown some absolutely dreadfully hideous interceptions, way too many mistakes. And I think what the offense that Jayden Daniels is piloting is more aggressive, asks more of him, asks him to make more difficult throws more often. Bo Nix's offense is very well tailored to him. But that is he is driving a very sensible Honda Accord, and Jayden Daniels is going 200 in a Maserati.
Well, listen, it may be a little case of tortoise in the hare. I can tell you two people who agree with me are guys over at Locked On Broncos, Cody and Sayer.
But the Broncos responding to a dismal first half, especially your quarterback. I was thinking about it, Cody, as the Broncos came out of halftime. It's like, Bo Nix needs to be the one to make a play here because the Raiders have kind of found a way. They're batting down balls at the line of scrimmage. They're getting a good pass rush. They're not allowing the Broncos to really run the ball a ton. And then we saw that. So the Broncos started off the second half with a rough opening drive, and then you get the interception by Brandon Jones that sets you up in great field position, the throw to Cortland Sutton for the first touchdown of the game. I mean, just a beautiful play between two guys whose chemistry over the last 5-6 games has been outstanding. So to see Bo Nix come out and respond the way that he did in that second half, I mean, we're talking Rookie of the Year right now, Cody. Bo Nix, he's the Rookie of the Year to me. I know other guys are putting up numbers. I know other guys have played well. Bo Nix, he crossed that 20 total touchdown threshold. He is the Rookie of the Year as of right now, in my opinion.
And you know what, Luke? I think you made a good point about the way that they played. Jayden Daniels has been more of an explosive player. You can see in the yards per attempt, 7.9 to Bo Nix's, which is 6.4. But at the end of the day, I don't care how you get there, whether it's flashy, whether it's in a Honda Accord or a Maserati. To me, it's about getting to the finish line. And I think part of my reasoning here is going down the stretch of this season, I think that Bo Nix's team and Bo Nix are going to play better than Jayden Daniels, who in a Cliff Kingsbury offense that always goes over a cliff in the second half of the season. I think it's not only hey, they're really, really close right now, but also I think Bo Nix is going to play better down the stretch because his way of playing is more sustainable. So that's part of my reasoning for going with Bo Nix right now as well.
I can't give you too many flowers for dunking on the Panthers and the Raiders. I don't know. When the rubber meets the road in January, and you got to go on the road and play in Buffalo or in Kansas City or in wherever, I see that the offense that the Broncos run right now is very easy for a good defense to defend. And for a defense that can't figure out where its elbow is, then yeah, that's going to work on them because they can't figure out how to walk.
Well, hold on.
I'm just not impressed
Commanders
yet.
beat? They beat the Giants twice. They beat the Browns. They beat the Bears. They beat the Panthers as well. They've lost to Philly. They've lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Baltimore. Like anytime that Washington has played a good team, they've lost as well. So I can't sit here and say that one guy has better wins than another guy when both guys haven't really beat good teams, and they've lost, or they haven't beat the good teams and they beat the teams that aren't good. It seems very similar to me.
I think the game that Jayden Daniels had against Pittsburgh wasn't a win, but I think that game does more for me than going around and dunking on whatever the scraps the Panthers can put forth that week. You know what I mean? Like that felt a little bit more like a playoff atmosphere where you could go be a part of something. But ultimately, here's what this is going to come down to for reputation. And I think Rookie of the Year will be decided before this. Both these teams probably going on the road and playing somebody tough in their own stadium in the playoffs, right? Like the Broncos are in a fantastic wild card position. Commanders in fantastic wild card position. And it's a matter of which thing is easier to dismantle. And the one that generates explosives at a higher clip is going to be the one that's more capable of pulling off the upset you don't think they're capable of.
Well, I just want to point out, too, that Bo Nix played Kansas City, went 22 for 30, 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. So if we're going to give Jayden Daniels a bunch of credit for losing to the Steelers and looking good, then it's not like Bo Nix hasn't looked good in close losses to good teams as well.
You take a Chiefs defense over the Steelers defense? I don't know, man.
I'm taking the Chiefs over the Steelers overall, though. Which team is harder to beat?
Patrick Mahomes has nothing to do with this, though, man. I mean, we're talking about one side of the ball. The Jayden Daniels can't do anything about the defense, and Bo Nix doesn't get any credit for the very good defense the Broncos have.
Well, I think that it's close enough to where it's still up in the air, and the back half of the season will decide it. And I'm going to give Bo Nix the edge. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is, you're right, wins and losses play a big deal. And my guy, David Harrison from Locked On Commanders, talked about, this team's kind of falling apart here in Washington.
Washington Commanders are now 1-5 in games where they failed to win the time of possession battle. That one win, Chicago Bears, which you could say, outside of a miracle, pretty much lost that game. Due to a miracle, you almost won this one, which is cool, which shows you that, yeah, you do have a special quarterback in Jayden Daniels. Nobody should be doubting that. But Jayden Daniels is not ready, nor should any rookie have to be ready to carry the stinking team. And the offensive designs, the offensive players, they've got to do some things. We saw some drops today in the game. Noah Brown had a couple of drops. I think Zach Ertz had a drop. Trying to think off the top of my head, Austin Eckler had a drop. You can't have these drops when you have a rookie quarterback. You have to find a way to pick him up and to help him out.
Would you say that that's part of your reasoning there, that Jayden Daniels has gotten less help than Bo Nix?
Yeah, I think this is the Bucky Brooks tractors and trailers kind of deal, right? Jayden Daniels right now is a tractor that maybe isn't enough of a tractor, but Bo Nix is the trailer in Denver, and it's going to be really hard to overcome that until I see what I need to see. There was this great this great fade route to Cortland Sutton against the Raiders and over good coverage, great stuff like that. Roll out, generate explosives, but that's the way it was for me pre-draft too. I had Jayden Daniels QB1 because of explosive plays, and I knew that there would be mistakes, but you can get into a 2nd and 15 if you can then rip off a 30-yard bomb. You can't get out of a 2nd and 15 with just stick. And that ultimately, over time, a situation will come up where that is going to be tested.
And it's going to be fun to watch. We have a great Rookie of the Year battle going down the rest of the season. 2 guys who aren't involved, though, Drake Maye and Caleb Williams. We're going to talk about those concerns. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun and the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports and get some real money sports action. That's why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to all, because all you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And right now, this is really important, folks, you can get a free Thanksgiving square. Tyreek Hill only needs to receive over a half a receiving yard for the projection to hit. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you're going to win real cash on Prize Picks. Make sure that you download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Skylight Frames. Look, guys, it's the holiday season, and I know that gift giving can be very, very difficult. Some people in our lives are very difficult to buy for, but I have a perfect gift option for you that works for everyone, and it's Skylight Frames. So here's how it works. It's a digital photo frame, and you can upload any photos you want directly to the frame using the Skylight Frame mobile app. Actually, your whole family can upload photos as well. Thousands of photos from your phone. They appear in seconds on the Skylight Frame app. It takes less than 60 seconds to set it up. It's going to be something that has emotional value to you. You can constantly update it, so it really is a gift that keeps on giving. And you can keep some of these photos you don't necessarily want to share on the internet with everybody. Keep them private with your family and still let all of your family members be able to see them. I'm not a very good gift buyer. It's just a reality. And the Skylight Frame has been a major hit for years and years for me. And now I have a special limited time offer for our listeners. You can get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. Once again, get $20 off your Skylight Frame at skylightframe.com/NFL. All right, Luke, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We battled it out a bit there in the opening segment on Rookie of the Year. And
need more of that.
I got to tell you, I know I like to call you the brain at the beginning of our shows, but I'm going to introduce a new character for today's show, and that is Darth Braun. Because Luke,
you do bring out the evil in me. That's true.
I do. I think I've had an impact on you this football season. And Luke had a little cut up that he put up online of some less than memorable throws for Caleb Williams in their matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that my guy Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears maybe doesn't agree with the narrative Luke is that Darth Braun is trying to put out there.
Because it's like, oh, well, they only got a couple minutes left. There's no way they can get two scores here. They have to score a touchdown, get an onside kick, then get back into field goal range and hit a field goal. There's no way this team can do that with how bad this Bears team has been this season. Let's get out of here. And lo and behold, they did exactly that. And so much of that was on the shoulders of Caleb Williams, an absolutely clutch fourth quarter performance. In the fourth quarter alone, he completed over 70% of his passes for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was absolutely dialed in. I think the one that stand out the most to me was the last throw to set up the field goal where he hits DJ Moore deep over the middle of the field, just over top of the underneath coverage, but in front of the deepest of the deep coverage there. Like, just brilliant next level layered throws there from Caleb Williams with the pressure on in the most critical moments of the game. He has it.
Listen, Luke, I'm with Lauren on this one. We're going to be battling the Jedi versus the dark side is what I feel like this episode is with Dark. Caleb Williams is a good player. He shows stuff every week. The coaching staff is terrible. They need new coaches. I'm on Caleb Williams' side. I think he's going to be fine.
Look, okay, I'll give Caleb Williams a couple things. One, yes, the Bears are a total disaster outside of him, and a lot of the Bears' struggles are not on him. I don't think anybody's saying all the Bears' struggles are on him. I don't think even the biggest haters would say that. Like, we all see what's going on. We all watch that center. Okay, we all watch that center. We see. And Caleb Williams did have some nice throws on that one. He had just as many absolute catastrophe throws. Here's the thing. Caleb Williams is fantastic on half the plays. Congratulations, you can play half of a game. And he absolutely sucks on the other half. So I am so goddamn sick of seeing people just cherry pick the good plays, completely forget when he sky mails 2 turkey hole throws to a wide open Rome Odunze for what could have been the touchdown 50 seconds earlier. It could have been so much easier if he were accurate on those throws, but no, he missed them. And guess what? You aren't going to see that at all. You didn't see it on Red Zone. You're not going to see it on anyone's cut up. That's why I put that on Twitter, because people need to see that. People need to see the whole body of work. The whole body of work is inconsistent. Okay? Inconsistent. He can make some really great wow throws, but do you ever notice that when you see a Caleb Williams clip, you see everyone post the same play? That's because there's one play. There's only the one.
Let the hate flow through you, Luke. Listen, I understand.
If they can cherry pick, I can cherry pick, all right? I need to stem the tide a little bit. An opposing force.
You're trying to bring balance to the force. I get
yes.
it. You got to have the dark side here. But I just think that with better coaching, some of that could get cleaned up. I recognize that he had that to him in
with
college.
The coaching and an O-line and receivers and some rule changes, they'll be fine. Yeah. Congrats on your 4-8 season with a lot of hope. I've never heard about that from Chicago before.
Oh God, bring out the blowtorch, folks. But I think that we have represented both sides. I'm hopeful for Caleb Williams with some better coaching, but I understand the inconsistency of his play. And that's why he wasn't in the first segment where we talked about people going for rookie of the year, because he is not in that discussion for a lot of these reasons. But another rookie quarterback here is Drake Maye. And I was worried when Drake Maye was announced as the starter that the Patriots would let Drake Maye down. And I feel like that is what's happening. I feel like Drake Maye is playing good football. He's doing the best he can, and the Patriots just aren't a very good team. I am not sold on Jerod Mayo as a good coach, and some of the things that he says after games, just very peculiar. Recently, he said, once they go within the white lines, I can't help them anymore, talking about his players. I think that's an absurd thing to say. A coach's job isn't done when his players get through the white lines. You call the plays, you install the plays, you develop the rules and responsibilities of your coverages, of what you want to do. Like, I just think that's a cop-out answer, quite frankly. And as someone who had a former player as the head coach of his team for a long time, I think that certain former players coach like their former players, and players always want to minimize coaching. It's the Jimmies and the Joes, not the X's and the O's. It doesn't matter what my coach calls. I need to go out there and execute. That's the player's mindset. And I think Jerod Mayo coaches with a player's mindset and minimizes his value as a coach. And I think that's hurting that football team. But I know that you kind of want to defend Jerod Mayo here.
So I just want to defend the comments that he made where, once you get past that white line, I can't do anything for you.
I hate it.
Jerod Mayo was a player. I think it's different if you hear that from Dave Canales or like me, right? But he understands that, I can prepare you, and then it's go forth and you have to do what you can. I get it that he shouldn't say that kind of thing, but we're all in agreement here that we're booing him because he's right? Like, once you get out there is only so much the coach can do for you. There's only so much the coach can do to overcome the fact they have Vidarian Lowe playing left tackle right now. I know him because the Vikings drafted him in the 6th round and cut him. That guy's their starter and has been for 2 years now. I mean, they're going through horrible moments on their offensive line. The guy that was supposed to bring juice and energy to their wide receiver room is a healthy scratch most of the time. That's KJ Osborne. Those are two people that I'm familiar with from the Vikings, and they've had all kinds of other problems.
Not playing. That's another problem.
Yeah, there is only so much that Jerod Mayo can do. But if we're going to kill him for saying, hey, I can only do so much for you once you get out on the field, we have to all acknowledge that that he said a truth there, that he was correct. And maybe he just shouldn't. It was maybe impolite to say it. But really, is that what we're doing here?
Though. I think it's to a point, though. Like, I can't, a coach can't make a left
can't block
tackle
for Vidarian Lowe.
You
can't go catch the ball for him.
But calling the correct plays, putting your players in correct position, understanding the tendencies and the patterns of your opponent, and calling plays that attack those situations. Like, I feel like certain former players, when their coaches minimize the value of coaching, and then they blame their coaches too much, like Deion Sanders this weekend saying, you guys got the disease of hearing what people are saying about you. Like, a lot of former players, when they turn coach, they try to put it all on their players, because when they were a player, they put it all on themselves. That was the mentality. And I feel like you have to have a different mentality as a coach than you did as a player. And I feel like that's hard for certain former players like Mike Vrabel, for example, who I felt coached like a former player and never really gave credence to how impactful a good coach and a good scheme could be. So I'm not saying that you're wrong, because that is right to a point, but the line to where that becomes correct and incorrect, I feel like Jerod Mayo is on the wrong side of that.
Yeah, if you get a former player, you need one like Kevin O'Connell, who was really bad in the league and sucked and couldn't make a team. Yeah.
Yes. That's why you look at other sports like Magic Johnson was a terrible head coach. And some of the best head coaches in the NBA were never in the NBA because they couldn't survive on that talent. They couldn't rely on their natural talent. They had to win with their mind. And I just feel like the necessity to win with your mind creates better coaching than someone who won with their talent. So that's my gripe. But this is bigger than Gerard Mayo and the Patriots. This is gripes I've had about Mike Vrabel for years. So
yeah, I can. The Titans is coming up. I'll leave it with this for all of these guys, for Caleb Williams, for Drake Maye, for Jayden Daniels, all of these guys that have all had their rookie struggles, right? Which is give them all time. These are all rookie years. If it is exceedingly rare to see a rookie quarterback come out and just be absolute nails his first year, and be super consistent. And I think we need to give all those people space. Part of my frustration with Caleb Williams is that he was not given that space. He was expected to come in and be the golden boy right away. And because he isn't, I think a lot of people are struggling to cope with that. But I think he needs to be given the same space that we're giving to Bo Nix and Daniels and Maye and say, maybe chill out. The O-line kind of sucks. We got to chill. And maybe that has something to do with the next two guys.
Yeah, we might have to extend that patience more than just first year because Bryce Young and Will Levis were left for dead earlier this season, and both of them look like they're in line to get a third year with their respective teams. And, to your point too, it reminds me of CJ Stroud, who came in right away and was nails as a rookie. And then you look at CJ Stroud now and the struggles that he's having because the O-line, because of the play calling. And it's just a reminder that, not everything we see right away, good or bad, may be exactly what it is. But let's talk about these second-year quarterbacks earning a third year. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, folks, you can start the second half of the NFL season, really the final third of the NFL season at this point, with a great deal on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Personally, I love placing live drive bets like, hey, the Titans are going to punt here. It seems to work out more often than not. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can open up the FanDuel Sportsbook app. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. Make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Luke, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We've talked about all the big-time rookie quarterbacks that are playing right now, Rookie of the Year, and some of the guys maybe not experiencing the same amount of team success. But now we're going to look at some of these second-year quarterbacks, and one of them, obviously, that I'm pretty close to. But we will start with Bryce Young in Carolina. And before we dive in, thanks again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Get subscribed, stay subscribed, and check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. My guy Julian Council from Locked On Panthers been very critical of Bryce Young, but also been very praiseworthy of his recent play. And he talked about just how impressive this game was, even though it was a 3-point loss to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Bryce Young played, in my mind, the best game he has played as a Carolina Panther. When you consider the opponent being Kansas City, the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, that defense led by Steve Spagnuolo, who oftentimes exposes quarterbacks for not being able to play at this level. That did not happen yesterday with Bryce. They took away the run, and Bryce Young went out there and he moved the ball up and down the field all afternoon long, keeping Carolina in that game, having him positioned to tie the game with 1:46 left. And, well, Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things. But I went into that game saying, in order for the Panthers to win the Super Bowls that David Tepper believed Bryce Young gave them the best opportunity to win with him and not Stroud, not Richardson, not Levis when they decided to take Young #1 overall 18 months ago, you're going to have to take down Kansas City. You're going to have to get performances like you got from Bryce Young and then some on Sunday in order to do that. And that was a step in the right direction.
Luke, it's simple. Are we giving Bryce Young year 3, or should the Panthers be looking at a quarterback in this year's draft?
I think they'll know what they have to know to make that decision, but suddenly Bryce Young's making it hard, and that's why you give him some time, right? I think what was wrong with him last year was, I think, very mechanical. And so I'm very curious to see if he's overcome those mechanics or like if he's like changed it and started to like drop back a little bit more, like more standard, like what you see in the pro game, or if they've just found a way to operate an offense anyways. I'm very curious about that, but I'm not familiar enough with this Panthers Chiefs game. I haven't gotten a chance to look into it.
Look, I think if you have a 3-point loss to the Kansas City Chiefs in a game where you were leading tied for certain times, and some of the throws that I've seen Bryce Young make in that game, I think the Panthers, the problem is if you go out and you draft a new quarterback with 2 years left on Bryce Young's contract, and then, of course, the 5th-year option is available as well, you're just killing an incredible asset right off the bat. And to tell you the truth, a lot of this discussion for me, Luke, comes down to this draft class. And at the end of the day, I haven't done high-level scouting on this year's NFL quarterback draft class. I just watch college football on a week-to-week basis like everybody else. And I know, Luke, you aren't even a guy who cares to watch college football during the season. So it's not like we have done in-depth scouting. But just from my watch of college football week to week, I simply don't think that a guy like Shedeur Sanders or a guy like Cam Ward or a guy like Jalen Milroe or Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers or Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU if he comes out, or any of the other options that people want to bring to the table, a Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. You know, one of those guys is probably going to be a decent player, but I just don't think it's a sure enough bet to go away from a guy like Bryce Young. And I feel the same about Will Levis. Like, I'll just go in to this. I don't like to do a ton of home cooking on the Locked On NFL show. You can get all the Titans news you want at Locked On Titans if you care to do that. But Will Levis still takes a ton of sacks that he shouldn't. He still has the occasional bonehead play. But at the end of the day, you watch Cam Ward run around at Miami, and he makes boneheaded plays, even though he's an uber-talented guy with great mobility and arm strength. Shedeur Sanders is a guy who holds the ball forever and takes a ton of sacks, even though his offensive line hasn't been the best during his time at Colorado. He isn't a high-level, I don't want to say high-level athlete from sitting in my computer chair in a basement, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, Shedeur Sanders doesn't have an A-plus arm or A-plus mobility, you know? It's just solid. And I just don't think that any of the quarterback prospects are tantalizing enough for either of these teams, the Panthers or the Titans, to move on from an asset that they used just 2 years ago.
I'll give you this because I can't tell you anything about these college quarterbacks right now. But assuming that a team feels the same as you, and it does kind of sound like that's the reputation of this class, like generally, right? If a team feels that way, that will absolutely just say, well, I guess let's just give Levis one more year. And then if we don't like it, now we're in a better QB class. And so we're like happier with that, right? Yep. So like sometimes you do navigate it that way. And I think that's a good way to navigate it at every position, right? I think there's like an underrated savvy to teams that kind of make it, wow, they've got a really bad cornerback need. Oh, this is a great cornerback class. Like I think sometimes teams do a great job of maneuvering right into that and don't get enough credit for it. Yeah,
I think there's multi-year planning in the draft that happens in advance, and it.
Oh, for sure, and that affects contracts.
See that, you know,
and it has a lot to do because like we think of the draft, you know, I think for us especially, people who cover the pro game, we spend most of our time covering college football and looking at college football after the season when we're looking at the draft and we're doing that stuff, or maybe just on Saturdays on the couch.
For me, for sure, yeah.
Unless you're like really a draft guy, like if you're like one of the draft dudes or something, that's your deal.
Yeah, check out Locked On NFL Scouting, the draft dudes, all of that. I mean, we got some content if that's what you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's different, right? But like I think for most of us, our exposure is going to be about the upcoming draft class right now, the seniors, the juniors. But that's not how teams do it. NFL teams have scouting program. They're looking at sophomores right now, right? They got people going to SEC games going, oh, who's that freshman over there? And they're going to start putting together their things. By the time these kids are seniors, you're watching that basically to see, oh, did they grow out of that habit we already have well documented and a 4-page write-up on? Right. And a lot of times
looking
they
at
do
players
because
like, oh, he doesn't do that well. Well, most NFL scouts have been like, well, he hasn't done it well since a freshman. He's actually improved. So we have faith he can get better. You know, like we just look at it from a different vantage point.
But the reason you do that is because then you go, man, there's like a million sophomore D linemen we really like. Let's paper this over with free agents for 2 years, and then we'll go get a D lineman in that draft when we really like it. And it doesn't matter where we're going to pick because there's enough of them where we feel good. And maneuver that like that. That's an underrated thing, and it all happens, behind closed doors in front offices, so it never gets covered. But I'm fascinated with it.
Yeah, to use an old cliche that gets used too much, it truly is chess, not checkers, where you're setting things up in advance, not just, hey, I'll jump this piece right here, king me. So with that being said, though, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. That was a great episode, Luke. Great stuff right there. Shout out to all these young
Fantastic.
QBs. It's been fun to watch. Excited to see them grow or regress or whatever happens going down the stretch. But with that being said, that is going to do it for us. I am the Madman, Tyler Rowland, my co-host, the Brain, Darth Braun, Luke Braun. Make sure to get subscribed, stay subscribed. Check out Locked On NFL in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. As I tell you guys every single episode, stay safe out there.